Good day, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unleash with FTEM, Unleash with From the Expert's Mouth. And today we are taking you into a world of adventure. And traveling with us in this adventure is Chirag Gupta, CEO and founder of Deyor, a travel company. But let me not steal his thunder. And Chirag, why don't you introduce yourself and then we can get into this journey?
Thank you, Rajiv ji. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I have been following your show for a while now, and I've been watching you speak to some really great personalities and great people. Very happy to be here and part of a show where I have been learning myself, from different founders and different people who are experts in their own domains. Also, I'm Chirag. I've been running this experiential travel startup for the last 6 years now. We will be turning 7 in May of 2023. Um, it's been a great journey. It's been a journey of ups and downs. It's been a journey of a COVID-19 pandemic as a travel founder. So looking forward to talking to you about, my journey.
Yeah, surely. So, Chirag, let's start from the beginning. What motivated you to start this travel company, and what was your background prior to that? How did you get into this?
Yeah. So my background, when I did my undergrad from Delhi University, immediately when I came out, I went and joined a college for my MBA. 3 weeks into my college, I got into my car and I drove back home. And my dad was looking at me and he said, "Aren't you supposed to be in college right now?" And I said, I can't do this. I don't think MBA is the right place for me to be at this point in time. And he said, "Then what will you be doing?" I said, "Do I have your support to drop MBA?" He said, "You have my support. Don't worry about it." I went, I processed the refunds and all. And then I fortunately met this gentleman called Dheeraj Jain. He was moving from London to India at the time, and he was setting up his startup investment fund in India by the name of Redcliffe Capital. Now, as luck may have it, I met him. He said, "Come on board, help me invest into startups." Rajiv ji, I think over the next 2 years, I may have met over 600 startup entrepreneurs across the country. The
Okay.
best part was that we were a sector agnostic fund. We would do anything from QSR to EdTech. Over the course of 2 years, we did about 45, out of which 22 were personally taken care of by me. They gave great returns to the fund. Of course, I'm not going to deep dive into that. But 2 years into that fund, I realized one year I'm too young. I need to be on the hustle side of the table, and that's why I dropped my MBA anyway. I realized my passion was always to travel. I think one of the major problems that Dheeraj had with me over 2 years was that I was always traveling, and if it was not for work, it was for personal travel. So he said, "Yeah, what? You're a great guy. The first check in your company is going to be my check." Of course, my dad also supported by investing in my startup. But the passion truly came out of the fact that I was a traveler and I saw gaps in the travel space that I wanted to fill.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. And let me dive a little bit deeper into your thought process when you quit the MBA right after college within what you said 3 weeks, right? Uh, so, what is
Yes.
it about that MBA program that kind of ticked you off? And it wasn't from what you were mentioning. It wasn't as if you're clear that this is something else that you wanted to do. It was just clear that you didn't want to do that, go through that MBA
Yeah.
route.
Spot on about the fact that there was no backup plan. When I put my head down and I walked towards my car, I knew there was no backup plan. I just knew I needed my family support at that time, right?
Right.
What ticked me off honestly about the MBA program, and I must say this for any youth, any youngster out there who is either pressurized by family to do MBA or is thinking that MBA is my path breaking roadmap to glory. It's not. It's not. Not
Right.
after your undergrad. What they were teaching, the institute that I went to, I don't want to name them, for their own sake, but what I personally believe is that they're a good institute, right? The
Right.
challenge, however, was that uh, I was not ready, and I think that institute must also, probably tell people, educate people, not to come and do an MBA right after their undergrad.
Right.
MBAs are supposed to be practical in nature. 2022, I did my executive masters from IIM Ahmedabad. What
Right.
a quality change, right? What a difference in the whole pedagogy of education, right? Case study based education. I was finally able to understand what is being taught in each lecture, and I was able to contribute. Had I done the same thing in 2014, I would have not understood a word that was written. And
Right.
and you're also from IIM. I'm an alumni of IIM. We understand, in a matter of 1 year or 2 years, no matter how long your course is, you end up reading about and understanding and doing classes about maybe 50 different industries that you would not learn otherwise about, right? So I think MBA is purely supposed to be about full of is something you do after you gain experience, work experience, right?
Right.
And I just didn't connect with education, so I dropped out.
Right. No, absolutely. I think the value of an MBA really is after at least having some exposure to the corporate or industry or whatever field you are in. But I think you were damn lucky that you got an exposure in a working environment where you were interacting with 600 startup founders at that early stage, and it was sector agnostic. So I think that would have given you a very diverse experience set also.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I can confess today that there were times where I met extremely able entrepreneurs, and I used to really question myself that this guy sitting next to me is probably 100 times more knowledgeable than me. What am I
Right.
evaluating him? So I used to feel really out of place, but there's a knack to understand certain parameters in people. There's a knack to understand certain quality in business that got me to track the right investments and get the right entrepreneurs to Dheeraj, and then he went on and put money into them.
Right, right. And then because you enjoyed traveling, I think that's how you figured out that this is something that you should do. So I guess the mental model was that the work should be something that you enjoy doing and try and, put the two together so
Mm.
that you can enjoy your work and not have to look at, leisure or fun or enjoyment outside of work.
Yeah, see, you look at a lot of motivational videos these days. Somebody will say wake up at 4 a.m. Somebody will say work 18 hours a day. Uh, I personally believe you should be doing something that motivates you to jump out of bed in the morning, right?
Right,
It doesn't matter what time you're getting out of the bed. It should motivate you. Now, again, I'm not motivating people to get out of bed late. I'm an early riser myself, but
right,
I not educate people that early rising will make you or break you. You can wake up at 4 a.m. and be doing something that you're not passionate about. You will end up draining that business, down a hole. But if you're really passionate about what you're building, right? No matter if you wake up at 4 a.m. or you wake up at 7 a.m., the quality, the energy that you bring on the table every day is what will keep growing it. Surrounding yourself with quality people who also have the same vision, they have the similar passion. They are the ones who will really grow your business. So,
right,
so I think that's a truly important thing, and that's why I chase my passion. That's why I said if I like travel, if I understand travel, if while traveling I myself see gaps in travel, then that's an industry I need to start chasing and solving for.
right. Yeah. So, I think something very interesting you mentioned. A lot of people try and make this whole process of enjoying life very complicated, right?
Mm.
To do the best, you got to get up at 5 o'clock, do meditation, do these five things in the morning, go through these six routines for which they'll create an acronym. It's extremely complicated. But
Mm.
I think the mantra, as you're saying, is very simple. Just do what you enjoy doing, do what you're passionate about, and you will automatically jump out of bed and do all the right things, and you'll be happy and hopefully successful as well.
Absolutely. See, Rajiji, if you deep down and break down the whole process of why experts are asking you to wake up at 4 a.m., they're not asking you to wake up at 4 a.m., they're asking you to be disciplined, right?
Right,
You For you to wake up at 4 a.m., follow a six-step process means that you're able to train your body and mind to do something, right? But if you feel that discipline from within, and if you feel that passion from within, then it doesn't matter whether you're waking up at 4, whether you are able to hit the gym that morning, whether you're able to do yoga that morning, whether you're able to have a glass of cold water first thing in the morning. You
right.
will bring that energy to the table, and it's okay.
Yeah,
You also today, I'm sure, must be feeling one of those drained out days. It could be a Monday, it could be a Friday, where you don't feel like working, right? So it's okay to take it easy that day, and it's okay to say, you know what, I've got a bunch of guys and girls who are working for me. They can bring that energy to the table, but you cannot just burn yourself out at all times because some expert with 3 million followers said, "Next, we have to wake up in the morning and do these six things. Otherwise, we'll be
right,
failures in life." So
right.
that's my thought process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, for people who are fortunate enough to carve out their lives in such a way
Hmm.
that their work life is what they truly enjoy, because, face it, I mean, the fact is that the work life takes up most of our living time and most of our prime of our lives.
Mm.
So that's something that you got to enjoy. If you're able to configure your life in such a way, then that's great. If not, then I think a lot of these external motivations and scaffoldings can help you navigate and guide your life, so that you kind of force that discipline upon yourself if it is not coming naturally by the kind of work that you're doing, or by the kind of life that you're leading. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another interesting thing that you mentioned is about interacting with the right sort of people. And I think that's one of the most underemphasized aspects of leading a good life, right? So tell me about your mental model about, like you said, interact with five good people, then you become the average of, those five. So is it something you've done consciously, or is it something that you've only realized in hindsight? So have you picked and chosen the kind of people that you want to interact with, cut out some people that you don't want to interact with?
See, I mean, honestly, growing up, you meet every kind of people, right? All sorts of people, all sorts of personalities. You meet people who go down the track of down bad habits, and I'm sure everybody watching this, all the youth watching this, will think of a person in their head who has bad habits. When I say this, you will think of somebody who has good habits. It is totally up to you, and this self realization could be either this realization could either be a self realization, or it could be something that is inculcated in you via your parents, or somebody senior in your life. For me, honestly, it was my parents who told me that, look, here is all the freedom in the world that you want. Here are the house keys. Even when I was in college, they said, you want to come back home at whatever time you want to come back, we have no problem, but you decide the path that you want to take in life, right? What you're doing at outside the house, whether it is 2 in the afternoon or 2 at night, is what will shape you as you grow, and you take those right decisions. Of course, I have encountered people who have been into all sorts of bad habits, right? But the first thing I did was take a u-turn,
Right.
and just walk away, because those guys will not change, not overnight, right? And I really wish that they change at some point in time, but they will drain you down that hole as well. I've known people personally who have fallen into traps of bad habits because they were surrounded in a certain company. वो कहते हैं ना, बुरी संगति का असर. And
Right.
it's a very true saying. If somebody is into consumption of a certain substance, and if you're around them, at some point in time, you will fall into that rabbit hole. You will fall
Right.
into it, and you will also start doing it. Similarly, let's look at the positive side. If I am surrounded by people who are great businessmen, very successful in their own corporate routine, I will aspire to be like them. It is
Right.
absolutely okay to keep your ego down, to keep your head down, and just say, you know what, I'm surrounded by people who are probably making 10 times of what I make in a month, but then you should be aspiring to become like them. Surround yourself with them, because they have certain learnings, they have certain thought process that if you also start following, then you will start realizing that, yes, ultimately, what are we here for? We are here for success, and success can be anything, whether it is your success in terms of how you grow in life, where you come from, and where you are today. Money is not everything, right? But it is, success is defined by various other parameters, and they will all fall into place, when you're surrounded by the right people.
Right.
Yeah. And
Oh,
sorry, I'll just add to this. For me also, I have been fortunate where all the investors that I have in my company today, I try to maintain direct contact with them. I try to be in touch with them as much as I can. I keep inviting them to the office to come and meet me, to meet my team. The similar quality I try to keep in terms of the people that we bring on board as part of the Deyor family. We try to hire quality people who can be as smart as us, or maybe even smarter than us, and really bring value to the table. Instead of being an entrepreneur who says, I want to be the smartest guy in the room, I genuinely go out in the
mhm.
market, and I get really smart chaps who are today building my core team, right? They're building my
Right.
business. So my own co-founder, he is an extremely smart chap. So things like these are very important to keep and to carry with you. That collectively will bring growth and success in your life.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I think these are things which you learn with a lot of experience. I think you're fortunate enough that you got all of these learnings pretty early on in life, and I'm sure that has helped you in your journey up to now.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your journey and your travel company. So, as you mentioned, you figured out that you enjoyed traveling, so your work should be related to the travel domain, and that's how it got started. And lucky you had an investor already on board. So, with a check in hand, I think starting off would have been at least easier as compared to somebody else who's bootstrapping and knocking the doors for funding. But
Yeah.
how did it all start, and what was the vision with which you started? What was the gap in the society, or what were the customer needs that you were trying to address?
Yeah. So, while having that first check was simple, just bringing the fun out of the table first. That there is a added investor pressure always. Whether that investor is your mentor or your father, you're answerable, right? The pressure is similarly bad for bootstrapping it because it's your own money, but there is pressure on all fronts. What was really difficult was not the first check. The difficult part was the first raise after the first check. Because that's where you go out of your comfort zone and you say, I'm going to be meeting HNI, CXO level people of big companies, Big Four, for example, and then understanding what they're looking for in the entrepreneur, in the team, in the idea, in the business, in the possibility of scale, and convincing them on all those parameters. That was the most exciting thing, and till date it is one of the most exciting things that brings me out of bed in the morning. But to answer your question, the gap that we saw in the field of travel, which by the way is very vast, the travel space. um, there are companies like Make My Trip, started 20 years ago. Who knew flight ticketing would be as simple as going on an app and just booking it,
Right,
similarly for hotels. And if you look at the entire context and the travel landscape, there are so many great companies doing such amazing work, right? Whether it is Oyo building up in hotels, Make My Trip I mentioned, Ixigo helping you book trains, which was such a task back in the
right,
day. But there are still gaps, and even today, while we are also building Deyor, we keep identifying and seeing different gaps in the travel space that nobody's building for. It's an extremely offline, and it's an industry which is dominated by the offline travel agents, right?
right,
And you will be seeing over the next 5 years lots of new companies springing up in the travel space will be making it very big. Having said that, one thing that both Himanshu and I were very clear about was that India is becoming a younger country by the day, right? We are one of the youngest countries in the world, and that means that at that point in time, the millennials, they were the ones who were changing the way people were traveling and people were spending. Back in the day,
right,
my dad would earn 10 rupees and try to save 9.
right,
Today, we earn 10 rupees and try to spend 9, right?
right,
But of that 9 rupees that we spend, we want quality, right?
right,
And we want, and not just quality of product or service, we want quality of life. That's where we spend
right,
that money, right? Buy a great car, we'll buy a great house, we'll go and do a great travel because we want that quality of life. Now we were focused on one thing, that whatever we build up will be focused completely on the millennials, and we will build up for them. So we started off as a camping company. We said, the
okay,
youth of India wants to go camping, and we started aggregating campsites across the country. And we said, these campsites are bookable online. We got great traction, we got great movement, we were recording amazing revenues. But at some point in time, Rajiv ji, what happens when you're building up any business, you hit a scale. Or वहाँ पे ना you plateau. So
right,
that's when you realize that that your addressable market for that product or that service is only till that limit,
right,
right? After that, you can increase the market by burning a lot of money. So we are frugal. I'm a Gupta. My founder is a Nagarwal. We are Banyas. We don't know
right,
how to spend money. We just cannot spend money. We just know how to make money,
right,
right? So we said, chalo yaar, this campaign has hit its peak. Let's try to club something else. So over the last 7 years, I would not say that we've pivoted. We have added on experiences and services to our product portfolio. So we
right,
went from camping, then we went to weekend getaways, then we went to long haul adventure trips. For example, one of the most amazing trips that we do today, and we are the biggest brand in the country who does this, are these bike trips from Delhi to Leh Ladakh. And these
right,
are 12 days, 1,800 kilometers on a Royal Enfield Himalayan bike. You start from Delhi go to Manali and you cover the entire circuit all the way to Leh and end in Srinagar. It's amazing. We see about 3,000, 4,000 people go on these bikes with us every year.
Okay.
Increasing year on year. So that's one
Right.
of the trips that we do. But instead of getting carried away by the trip, let's understand what's that trip and why exactly is the millennial loving Deyor and coming on that trip, right? The average millennial in India is looking for communities, right, where they can become a part of. And now, what does that community mean? Today, if I want to travel and I want to go to Ladakh on a bike trip, it's very expensive. First of all, I need a bike. I need to arrange a backup vehicle, a mechanic, spare parts. I need to know where the fuel pumps are. There are going to be areas where there's no signal, right? So
Right.
I'm just telling you about the Ladakh bike trip.
Yeah.
But all of these are challenges of the product or the service, right? What the millennial really needs is company. He needs
Right.
companionship. He needs another 20 people who are like-minded who can travel with him or her.
Hmm.
So he said, whatever the product is, whatever the service is, whatever the experience is, let's bring people together,
Right.
right? And we started with Ladakh, and it became an overnight sensation. And we expanded to parts of Himalayas. We expanded to parts of Northeast. We went to Bhutan. We went to Sri Lanka. Then the COVID-19 pandemic happened. We said,
Right.
okay, let's take a step back for 3 months, 4 months. Let's understand, let's talk to our customers and understand what more do they want. And the
Right.
community members came back to us and said, we want to go international after the pandemic. We said, look, what we understand and what we've been talking to industry experts, we don't feel international markets will open immediately after the pandemic. Domestic markets will definitely open. They said whenever it
Right.
opens, we want to go abroad. Today, we have people who are going from India to Bali, to Dubai, Singapore, Turkey, Europe. And you would not imagine, Rajiv ji, people who are 26, 27, 32, 33, never met in their life. Somebody
Right.
from Chandigarh and somebody from a Mysore, they become best of friends because they have met for the first time, in Dubai, and they went to the top of Burj Khalifa and they had a connect, and
Right.
that's what made their friendship for life. So that's the power of community, right? We are building up a community-driven travel organization
Hmm.
where if you want to travel, and whether you're alone or whether you're a group of people, come join our community, hang out with like-minded people, and travel the world together. That's what Deyor stands for. It means
Right.
decide abbreviation for decide your own route. And as a company, we will give you enough routes in the world. You can decide which one you want to go on.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And I think, if we look at it again from a business standpoint or a template which, other people can also apply, it's about going deeper into your customer segment and
mm,
understanding what is the core need that you're trying to address. So it's not
yeah,
just the manifestation, which may be, a travel, a trip to Ladakh or a camping site, which are only an outwardly manifestation. But
yeah,
within them, I think, especially given the way the world is structured today, the way
mm,
society is structured and the direction in which it is going, people don't have that connect. Social media, you really are not friends with anybody, even though you may have thousands of connections. You don't
yeah,
have people to talk to, even though you are, posting content or people are thrusting their content upon you. So
yeah,
that need of people to belong is
mm,
somehow not being met. Families are becoming nuclear, and relationships are becoming extremely superficial. So I think,
mm,
superimposing the travel domain and the experiential travel domain on top of that and connecting it to a community is a great way to kind of address that need. And if you're clear about what you're doing, then I think everything will follow, whether it's a camping site or an experiential travel or a biking trip or a international
yeah.
travel. That will all, I think, it will follow, and it will only be a matter of time.
No, spot on, spot on. I think for me also, there was this one customer who called up, and he said, that we have a saying that the bond that you make in school
Mhm.
when you're a child is the bond that you carry for life.
Right.
But we are creating equally, if not stronger, bonds on trips that we go with Dior. And that really moved me. It was a very, very emotional moment for me and for the rest of my team as well to actually see the value that we are bringing into people's lives.
Right.
And from a business sense, we're also seeing the scalability of it. People are coming back, and we see now people are going on multiple trips. People have been to Dubai in Jan, and then they will be booking the same trip, for September, because why not? They had
Right.
a great experience, they had a great trip. We also, as a company, we try to plug and play various things. I think in December, on the Christmas time, at the Christmas time when we had a trip, all of them were there, and we had left one day for, just a free day that you can just do whatever you want. And then we just put a message into the community. There were 24 people on that group. We put a message saying, "Can you please come to the lobby of the hotel? There is a surprise for you." And
Right.
there were limousines standing downstairs. And that was something we did from our own pockets. But
Right.
we just gave them a good limo experience around Dubai, which
Right.
they just went, berserk about. They just talked about it. They were posting on social media
Right.
that what a surprise from Deyor. We did not expect this. But you see amazing movies growing up, and you see a limousine experience. We were able to provide that to our community. So things
Right.
like these, they connect us with the brand, they connect them with each other, and it helps us provide value.
Right.
That is what we are here for as a service provider.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, the other thing which happens, particularly in this domain, and I'm sure, this principle will apply to a lot of other segments within the industry, is the price sensitivity of the customers. Because in travel, once again, people are very price sensitive. And, end of the day, anybody can take you to, Leh or Ladakh or to Dubai. I mean, you could just do it on your own as well, just booking a ticket, and you can say potentially that why should I spend few thousand rupees extra? What am I getting in return? So I think from that standpoint, it also becomes a very sticky aspect of getting the customer in and justifying the premium and being able to charge a premium.
Yeah.
So how have you seen price points, and how have you kind of handled these sort of objections of first time customers?
Uh, Great question. See, you can create and build whatever service and quality you want. Price sensitivity is core to the heart of every Indian customer, no matter what
Right.
they're buying or what they're purchasing, right? So, um, honestly, we understand that, and we don't want to be an organization that is just supporting itself by extreme profiteering, right? Profits. We are a profitable company today. We have been profitable since we came out of the pandemic. We have been able to be profitable, so we're very proud of that. Um, but the thing is that millennials, when you look at them, right, they really, really, really deeply understand uh, what exactly are they looking for. Honestly, Rajiv, people come to us today and they say, your group departure to Bali is a little expensive.
Right.
And we tell them, okay, what is the price point that you're looking for? And they say, maybe something that's about 10,000 rupees cheaper. And we tell them, why don't you do one thing? Why don't you customize it separately for yourself? You are three people. Let me customize it for you. But then you cannot be part of the group. You cannot be part of the experiences that this group is getting.
Right.
And you cannot be part of a larger circle. So then it's a cost benefit, analysis that they can do with themselves. See, we have also got a department within the company that does curated holidays, right? And that curated holiday is purely out of a team of people who are understanding the price sensitive market. So, okay, if you don't have if you don't have money to splurge, it's absolutely fine. If you don't want to pay that 10,000, 15,000 rupees premium, it's absolutely fine. We will tailor make an itinerary for you. But then the
Right.
downside is that that's a very private and a very personal trip. It is
Right.
not something that you're going to get with the rest of the community.
Right.
So there are all sorts of people that come in. There
Right.
are people who even end up customizing on the private one, get a cheaper rate, and then come back and say, no, 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 we'll pay the extra amount. We want to go with the community. There are some people who also take it on the private basis, but we as a company, we ensure that we are able to, cover the entire spectrum of travel and provide for each of them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that always pays in the long run. And if you give people an option, then at least they may end up anyway choosing the more premium option, but at
Yeah.
least they know they have a choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would be um lying to you, to myself, to the rest of my own team if I say, you know what, if people don't want to book the community trip, that's their problem. Then you can't build up a business like that. You have
Right.
to, people who go on our community trips, they come back and they say, I'm getting married next year, or I'm getting married next month. I want to book my honeymoon to Maldives. Now, that cannot be a community trip, right? So that
Correct.
that is a little personalized, that's a little curated. So we do that as well,
Right.
because at the end of the day, we have to grow the business. We have to keep increasing our service offering.
You mentioned about being profitable post the pandemic, but given that you are in the travel domain, the pandemic would have been essentially a zero revenue period for you, right? So, how was that period? What were the challenges, and how did you kind of come out of it?
Pandemic was the biggest nightmare, and the most prolonged nightmare of my life, and for the rest of my team. Um, I wouldn't wish for anything that bad to happen to any industry. Especially the travel industry was the most impacted. I think one could argue whether the restaurant industry was badly impacted. I would say the travel industry was even badly worse impacted. Um,
Absolutely.
Everybody who came out would say avoid travel, and then the narrative changed to avoid non-essential travel. Every founder in the travel domain had to take some necessary precautions and measures to ensure that they come out of the pandemic. For me, I immediately called a meeting with my team. I called a meeting with my investors, and I asked them what should be our way forward. Because if you actually circle back to to March 2020,
Yeah.
when the announcement of the lockdown was there was no playbook. No MBA and no other education in the world had taught you to prepare for this, right?
Right.
And the worst part was there was no idea when a vaccine would come out. There was no idea when the lockdowns would be lifted.
Right.
So we had no idea until when do we go into hibernation, if we go into hibernation. The only thing that all of us were on the same page about was that we need to conserve capital and come out as a company that has enough capital to grow the company as the vision desired.
Right.
We took all the necessary steps, whether they were furloughs or other actions that deeply sadden us as entrepreneurs. We had to take them, but when lockdown started getting lifted partially or
Mhm.
temporarily, we were able to make the right steps and use that capital wisely. ठीक है
Right.
अब मैं थोड़ा सा gap दे दिया but during the pandemic also we did a lot of things um,
Right.
to keep ourselves busy, to keep ourselves engaged with the community. Uh, we had a lot of influencers coming in talking to our community um, about travel. We used to just do talk shows about travel. We used to
Right.
make people feel travel when they couldn't actually travel.
Right.
That was one thing. Another thing we did was we launched a t-shirt company, which was very temporary. We knew it was very temporary only for the pandemic, saying that Rajiv ji, your last trip was Dubai, and you
Right.
are missing another trip. You're a very beach person, so let me give you a funny quote about travel on your T-shirt, and let me send that across to you. So things like that, are what we did to basically keep you connected with travel. But
Mhm.
essentially, back of the head, all of us were just waiting. We were looking at the watch. We were following every news, every guideline, and just waiting for things to open up. But yeah, I think really the important step that was there during the pandemic was to conserve capital and ensure that when we are coming out, we are strong enough,
Right.
to be able to grow the business.
Right.
Unfortunately, almost every second day, third day, we would hear about some large travel company or some large startup shutting down, downsizing, or not surviving the market. We even heard about a lot of other peers who were really small, who were building something great. They somebody shut down and started a grocery business. Somebody shut down, started something else. It was sad to see all of that happening. We were constantly preparing to come out of the pandemic. We were in touch with our vendors, our operators. We were sharpening the products, the experiences to ensure that when we come out of the pandemic, we deliver really quality experiences to our customers. So that's what
Right.
kept us busy. And touch wood, ever since we came out, we have been hitting the right steps.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sure this the revenge travel that people speak about that has helped kind of keep you afloat and hopefully make up for some of the lost time. But yeah, during the period of the pandemic, I can imagine that it would have been the worst possible nightmare.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's still this fear that is revenge travel temporary or is it permanent?
Right.
I think it's it's more than permanent. People
Mhm.
are people. You know, you would not imagine, Rajivji, the kind of disposable income that is there in India today. It is
Mhm.
unbelievable.
Right.
People, on the curated holidays side, we have had people who have booked online holidays to Maldives,
Right.
Turkey, and they have spent 16 lakhs, 18 lakhs, 20 lakh rupees. And,
Right.
you know, I'm not talking about a big group of people, I'm just talking three people, four people. So, people have that kind of disposable income.
Right.
People are spending immense amount of money just to travel, and they travel like there's no tomorrow, like there's no tomorrow. And we track all these measures like lifetime value of the customer, how
Right.
often does the customer return to your brand. And honestly, it was far lesser before the pandemic.
Right.
Now, sometimes we see this customer went with us 2 months ago, he's traveled again. There are customers
Right.
who travel with us. There was one customer we were noticing last week, he's been with us six times in 2022.
Right.
So one of my investors asked me, "What's your LTV?" I said, I don't even know like there's no upper cap.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. In
In
fact,
some,
I was just at one of the networking meets, and somebody introduced himself by saying, I have visited some 30 odd countries, and in the next few months, my target is to visit some 12 or 15 more. So, I mean, that's the kind of outlook that people have towards experiencing the world and traveling, which was certainly not there before. I think it's a this the new generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, they have a completely different DNA as compared to people like us who are born and brought up at a very different in a very different economic circumstances.
true, true, absolutely, absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, and it's good for businesses like us to keep providing quality and keep striving, right?
Right, right. So, one thing is surviving the pandemic. The
Hmm.
other thing is also, as a startup surviving for so many years. So now what, you're like 7 years old
Yeah, we will
organization?
turn 7 in May. Yeah,
Yeah. So surviving for 6, 7 years, that is not something which a lot of startups, even the funded ones, are able to do, right? And
yeah.
in your earlier role, you have experience of interacting with a few hundred startup founders, so you
Hmm.
are clued into the ecosystem. What, according to you, are some of the mistakes that people make, and how can they avoid, dying early and living on for at least a few years?
A fantastic question, and I think the answers are very clear, right? You look at most of the startup founders when they raise capital, they get carried away, right? And I don't just blame the founders, I also blame some of their investors, right?
Mhm.
I think raising capital is synonymous with scale at any cost or growth at
Right,
any cost, you know and I don't think it should be that way.
right.
um, for me, I've raised less than $1 million in my last 7 years, right?
Mhm.
And every time we raise capital, we could have also gone really crazy and said we want to hire 100 people or hundreds of people, and we want to put them on the job, and we want to just throw millions of dollars of marketing money on them
Right,
and see what gets built up. It
right.
doesn't work like that. Today we are in the market to hire people, right? Every time I interview somebody from the edtech space, for example,
Right,
you would not imagine the kind of salaries that they had been getting.
right.
And today they have been fired, in mass. So,
Yeah,
so the hyperscale model is fairly simple for well-funded startups. You raise a lot of capital, you hire people in bulk. The best way to hire people in bulk is to offer them more than the market standard.
right,
Then you let them go when you realize कि इतने लोग का काम ही नहीं है.
right,
Then after that, what happens? Those guys are in the market. Somebody has been at a salary of 60,000 rupees with 6 months of work experience. It is not justified.
right,
It is not, right? I personally believe that you should grow and you should keep scaling. If you have the capital, you should do everything possible to keep scaling, but it should be ROI driven.
right,
Today, when I hire a salesperson, I know the exact unit economics that that person is going to bring to my company. Why am I profitable? Because I've been building this business in a frugal manner. We
right,
are about 50 people today, right? and we do a revenue of more than 2 crore rupees a month,
Right.
right? So I know exactly what revenue one person will bring into my company, and if I hire an additional person, it is because I am expecting a certain class of work from them,
Right.
right? Now what happens is there are some of the people that I meet who tell me, look, you've been running a great model, people are buying from you, you're growing at a great scale, your chart is like this. Um, why don't you just add another 50 people, man?
Right.
And I said, and by God's grace, there is capital in the bank to do it.
Right.
But either you grow slow and steady, right? Or you just hyperscale and then realize one day that shit has hit the fan,
Right.
right? So the biggest problem that I see is hyperscaling at any cost, and
Correct.
that should be the case. People hire tech resources at any cost. People will go and sponsor IPLs of the world. People will go and get the best Bollywood celebrities as brand ambassadors. Have you even assessed what is the return that celebrity is bringing you,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
so as long as you're not ROI driven, and if you're just thinking of one thing in your head that, oh, you know what, 6 years down the line, if I keep following this model, I will turn profitable. It doesn't work
Right.
out like that.
No,
Not really.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's, back to the basic fundamentals of doing business, which, communities like ours have anyway, we've been living those values for time immemorial. So it comes very naturally to people like us. But the basic concept of conserving cash and looking at cash and conserving capital is something that people do not realize, partially because of their own mistakes, partially because the way investors are driving growth at any cost. And
Yeah,
this whole terminology of at any cost can have drastic consequences, as we've seen in some of the recent episodes. Not to name and shame anybody, but we've seen cases where people have compromised on ethics and values. They've fudged books. They've shown revenues and operations that don't exist. And this at any cost syndrome can take people down the rabbit hole, and they probably wouldn't even realize until they get sucked in so deep and there's no exit route out of it. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree, and I think it's as a startup founder or as an entrepreneur or as even a businessman, right? एक तो, there's this thought process that startup is not synonymous with dhanda. It is synonymous with dhanda. You need to build up dhanda. ठीक है,
Right.
people say, if I'm doing a traditional business, if I'm exporting carpets from India to Germany, only then I must
Right.
be profitable. But if I'm doing a startup, then I can grow at any cost. That mindset,
Hmm.
if that mindset is not going to change,
Right.
then we are going to see a lot of capital being invested into the country and a lot of
Hmm.
capital being burnt, right?
Right.
Today, for me, having raised less than 1 million and having close to 500,000 in the bank, even till date, it
Mhm.
shows that, and having gone through a pandemic,
Right.
despite all that, it shows that we have been able to grow the business, right? Um, today we are talking to investors who are talking to us to invest a larger amount of money into the business, and the question really is, how do you plan to spend this money, right?
Right.
Because we as founders understand the fundamentals of the business, we know exactly where we will spend to bring what ROI,
Right.
right? So conversation sometimes really goes like this: ki, we will put 2 million and we say just give us 1 million, you know.
Right.
While the other founder who's in the hyperscale model say no, give me 20. So
Right.
sometimes I just feel that some people who cannot handle money should not be given money, because end of the day stories like these will keep coming out, and
Right.
again naming anybody, but we will keep burning capital, and
Right.
and I don't really think that's the way to grow business.
Right. No, absolutely. I think, and this also leads me to a very interesting debate that people keep having. And I think people have different mental models of how do you define a startup versus how do you define an entrepreneur, right? And there is a common misconception that in a startup, you have the leverage to essentially keep running at losses for time immemorial, because, that is ultimately you're growing at any cost and you're creating a new niche for yourself. And someday, through some magical stroke of events, profitability and cash flows will follow, right? But what you're saying is that is not the quintessential definition of a startup. That's only what some people have made you to believe. But a startup, at the end of the day, is only different from a traditional entrepreneurship model in that it takes capital from an organized ecosystem of private equity players or venture capitalists or angel investors. But the fundamental principles or the way of doing business has to remain the same. That cannot be any different.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, look, I think it's also a problem of how the industry is shaped. Today, if you go to a large media house and tell them, "I want you to do an exclusive story on me, on how we are a profitable firm," they'll be like, "That's great. We'll schedule an interview at some point in time." You go to the same media house and say, "I've raised $1 million. I want you to do an exclusive story on me." They'll say, "Please come on board. Let's have a
Right.
chat. Can we come to your office and shoot a video with you, sir?" So what is being celebrated today, right?
Yeah.
Are we celebrating a company like Zerodha more, or are we celebrating a startup raising $10 million more, right? That is the question that needs to be answered from the
Right.
industry perspective. And I myself am no saint here. I have also burnt capital. But only to realize that burning is not the way forward, right? Only to realize that building up a profitable, sustainable business, building up a dhanda is really what will grow me as a person, my team as a collective group of people, and my company as a whole, right? So it's okay if somebody is not celebrating it. That's
Right.
their problem. We are happy at the end of the day. We are waking up the next morning even happier and looking forward to continue building.
Right.
So so that should be the thought process in every youth and every youngster out there who is going out there to build a startup.
Mhm.
um, don't hesitate. um, think of an idea, but think about how you can sustain that idea if you're bootstrapping it, or if you're um, even raising capital. How do you really create value?
Right. No, very, very interesting point you mentioned about, people getting drawn into this fear of missing out because, as we say, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. Ultimately, if people are only seeing these news stories in
Yeah.
mainstream media, or even if you look at the social media feed, it's the same story, even though, it's not people with commercial interest who are creating these stories. It is people like you and me. But
Yeah.
we are not creating stories or celebrating stories about somebody who's built a good operation or is revenue generating, profitable, conserving cash flows. We are only celebrating people who say that we've raised so many funds, or we've appeared in this news channel, or this story, or whatever. And those are essentially perpetuating this sort of mindset. And it takes a lot of strength and clarity of mind to say that I will not get sucked into this fear of missing out, because I know what is valuable, even though 10 people around me, or maybe even the rest of the world around me, does not seem to be celebrating the same things that I value.
Spot on, yeah. Spot on. Spot on. And I really hope, for the sake of the industry, for the sake of the next, you know, millions of youth and youngsters that are coming out, that the story, the way it is narrated, is
Right.
changed, so that people start valuing building up real businesses. I always say this to my team. I say, if today I'm the CEO, and I've hired the 50 of you, I have not, why I call you family and not employees is because um, you and your livelihood is my responsibility, right? I
Right.
don't care what background you come from, right? But today, what you are doing and how you're living is totally my responsibility, right? So if tomorrow the company doesn't have money and I have to let go of 80% of the team over here,
Right.
then I'm letting go of the livelihood of 80% people. I'm impacting that, and I'm sure
Right.
that you all will get jobs somewhere else, right?
Right.
But even if for a day, I don't want to impact it, right?
Right.
And that is the burden that we carry on our shoulders as entrepreneurs,
Right.
and then think of everything from there.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's a very different mindset as compared to a lot of the things that we see and hear about in the startup ecosystem. And that's why it's important to have these conversations. And I'm glad that you're saying all this, and that's what Unleash with FTM and From the Expert's Mouth represents.
Hmm.
Share experiences and insights of real people that can help everybody in their journey. And I'm sure these words will be eye opening and inspirational for a lot of existing startup entrepreneurs, founders, or people who are sitting on the fence, wondering whether they should do it or not, and how should they go about their journey. I think we've kind of given a nice enough template, or at least a mental model for people to think about how they should approach their journey, or at least think about their journey.
Mhm.
So, on that note, Chirag, any final piece of advice or thing that you would want to say, particularly to the people who are at the early stage, or in the thinking or the aspirational phase of their entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, I personally don't think that I'm the right person to give advice. Honestly, I have a few startups, few entrepreneurs who I am connected with one on one. I give them a lot of mentorship, and when I say mentorship, I don't give them gyan. I connect them. I personally feel that because when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I had support. You know, there are a lot of people out there today from tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four cities who are looking to start up, and they have no idea where to go. Right. So I feel really happy in giving back to the society when people come back to me and say, look, I'm starting a startup in this space. Would you connect? And then they come and they say, I'm going to give you 5% equity for this. And I tell them, look, keep your equity to yourself.
Right,
Let me. I am not your employee. I am not your co-founder. I am not taking a director seat in your board. I am just helping you. If you want a connection with ABC VC, or if you want a connection with ABC angel investor, I will do that. If you want to know how to hire people, if you want to know how to start up, there are so many things that a person needs to keep in mind, from
right,
compliances all the way to executing orders. I help them. I assist them, whether it's a mental health startup or whether it's a QSR outlet. I have been mentoring these guys, right? And pro bono,
right,
completely pro bono. And there is immense happiness in that, because you're not taking money, you're not taking equity, but you are supporting them, right?
right,
And just that feeling of helping another kid on the block uh,
right,
try to make it big, whether they make it big or not is their expertise and their lookout, right? But if I can help them get a foot in the door, it helps me sleep better at night.
right,
So my advice to the youth out there is, look for similar people who are in the field, and trust me, there are a lot of people like me. Of course, you can feel free to connect with me as well. But there are a lot of people like me who are supporting young kids on the block to start up, and if that guidance is available, right, and it's readily available, you should not hesitate to seek it. A lot of people
right.
feel shy, a lot of people are hesitant. I really, really, really encourage you to reach out, and you never know how help will help you, make it big in life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think try and get as much exposure, expand your network, and you never know how the dots connect. Something
Yeah,
which may seem totally unrelated today may just connect with something beautiful and magnificent in the times to come. Uh,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So
So,
definitely encouraging people not to be hesitant.
right. So great with those inspiring and motivating words. I'm sure a lot of people will be encouraged to kind of get out of their comfort zone and try and approach and try and carve their lives around something that they love doing. As we mentioned, in the beginning of the conversation with Chirag, get into something, get into a work area, or carve your life around something that you enjoy, and rest of the things will follow automatically. It may seem a bit intimidating initially, because it just seems like overbearing, and there are too many components in a business venture to be handled. But if you've got your heart in it, if you're interested in it, I think everything else will flow and follow automatically. The one big takeaway that we have from today's conversation is that focus on the essentials of doing business, or dhanda, or whatever else you may want to call it. But it has to be, put the basics first, and don't compromise ever on the basics and the basic values and essence of doing business.
Absolutely, Rajiti. Thank you so much for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the last hour with you, and I look forward to many more videos and many more entrepreneurs and experts that come on your session, and following your channel and watching them all. And thank you. And I also want to appreciate you for the hard work that you're putting out there. I don't think it's appreciated enough in bringing these people together. Even if you're able to change one life through one video, you've done your job. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, thanks, Chirag, for the kind words, and I think the same goes to you as well in terms of taking the time out from your busy schedule and speaking to the people on our channel about your journey and about the other things that you're doing pro bono to help and guide people. Uh, so, with that, we'll see you in the next episode of Unleash with FTM. But as far as this episode is concerned, you'll find the link in the comments and the description. We'll create a post around this so that people who want to read about his journey, about Chirag's journey, can do the same. And we also have the playlist of all the other episodes that Chirag has been referring to. So those will also be available in the description and the comments. And while we are on travel, it is pertinent to note that one of the episodes that we did in season two was around road safety. So while you are biking on your way to Ladakh or wherever else in the country or the world, do ensure that road safety is on top of your mind. And there's an episode we've done with the champion of road safety in India. So I'll put the link to that episode as well because it's kind of related to the same domain. So with that, thank you once again, Chirag, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you.